When searching YouTube for emergency preparedness, SHTF philosophy, and other gear reviews, which single item do you guys think is the most overlooked? Is it first aid or firearms, water purification or fire starting capabilities, or perhaps backup food supplies or navigation? What if I told you the most overlooked emergency preparedness item that nobody seems to be talking about is this thing right here? Welcome back to the Beats Rhymes Knife YouTube channel. My name is Gabriel, and I'm doing this video face-to-face because I believe it's a very serious topic that we need to cover in regards to emergency preparedness. But first up, like we always do on this channel, let's do a quick pocket check. Blade for today is the Metal Complex and Kunwu Excalibur. I just did a first impressions video on this blade last week. Feel free to go ahead and check it out when you have a moment. Flashlight for today is the 4.7's Preon 1 Mark III. Excellent EDC flashlight. Wallet is still the Hitchin Timber Does All with the Victorinox Pioneer X, Knip X Cobra XS pliers, and Big Idea Design mini clip. Keys are the same, JRW Tough Clip Carry Commission Edition. And the watch for today is something new, the Big Idea Design Baseline TI Field Watch. Great watch. Had to switch the strap though because I tend to destroy canvas straps. So now that we're done with that, let's go ahead and jump into today's subject. So about a year ago, during one of my favorite YouTubers' live streams, I asked this question right here.
G. Dilla asked, why are passports never mentioned as part of most people's preps?
It's an interesting point. They should be. Absolutely should be.
Now, after they thought about this question for a minute, they actually went on to give some insightful answers. But their initial reaction was very telling to me. Why do we not talk about passports as a necessary item in emergency preparedness? Something as common and as simple as a passport seems to be a bit of a taboo subject with the emergency preparedness crowd. And I've posed this question online in social media and other people's YouTube video comment sections, and I seem to get some very crazy responses to this topic. All along the lines of, I'd never flee the country. The United States is the greatest country in the world. Or even, you coward, how dare you flee the country? Why don't you stand and fight? Even responses like, you don't need to flee the country, just move to another state. But all those responses seem to highlight a very narrow perspective as it pertains to the usefulness of a passport in the case of emergency preparedness. So in order to broaden that perspective, let's consider a few things first. First and foremost, all SHTF preps are things we hope and pray we will never have to use. But if we ever need them, we'll be glad that we have them. Let's take, for instance, something very commonly purchased in the realm of emergency preparedness. These right here. These are potassium iodide tablets, and they're used as a temporary treatment for radiation poisoning. Now be honest with me, do you ever really want to have to use these? But in the case that you need them, you'll be glad that you have them. Now we'll come back to these in just a minute. Now there are some highly plausible scenarios where having a passport will be a great asset to you in an emergency scenario. So let's talk about some real-world examples. In February of 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine, I had a conversation with a fellow pastor in the town that I lived in. His church had missionaries on the ground in Ukraine when this whole thing popped off. And he explained to me that his missionaries were trying to help people evacuate the country. And unfortunately, those who did not have passports had the hardest time trying to escape the danger of the war that had just started. But those people that the missionaries were helping cross the border into safety that had passports, they were given priority in fleeing at that difficult time. So will a conflict like that ever happen on American soil? Now, before I answer that question, let's take it down a notch and look at some more practical uses for a passport. One of the benefits of using a passport as a primary means of identification is that it is a document with a 10-year expiration life. Now, for those 16 and under, they have to renew a passport about every 5 years. But if you're an adult, what other form of identification lasts that long? Secondarily, this is a federally, internationally, and locally recognized form of identification. So even if you don't plan on traveling internationally, this right here is more useful than a state driver's license. That alone makes this a very highly valuable asset, even in day-to-day life. Now let's look at another scenario where having a passport can be highly valuable. And this non-SHTF scenario is actually based upon real-world events. Let's say, for instance, you have a loved one who is traveling abroad or even studying abroad, and God forbid they get in trouble in that foreign country or even injured, and you are the one responsible to help them out in their time of need. How are you going to do so in that critical scenario if you don't have a passport to travel internationally? Are you going to wait around for 6 to 12 weeks to go help your loved one in their time of need? Now let's consider an SHTF scenario that's becoming more plausible every single day. In July of 2022, New York City aired a PSA commercial regarding what to do in the case of a nuclear attack. And while the effectivity of the information they gave to their population is debatable, I think there was some critical information left out regarding that type of catastrophe. And that brings us back to these guys right here. Now remember, potassium iodide pills are a temporary measure to help block the absorption of radioactive iodine into the thyroid. But this is not an antidote for radiation poisoning. So God forbid a nuclear attack or a nuclear radiation leak happens somewhere in our country. But putting confidence in stocking up in potassium iodide pills in order to survive nuclear fallout, that's honestly kind of foolish as your only option. Let's take a look at this nuclear fallout map that was generated using FEMA emergency data. Now, granted, this is an obvious worst-case scenario map, and it includes not only potential nuclear strike locations, densely populated cities, as well as nuclear power plants and sensitive military locations. But look at New York State. Look at Michigan, Wisconsin, West Texas, even Minnesota. What do you notice about them? If this worst-case scenario or even half of this happened, which direction should you go? And does that direction include a border? Again, God forbid anything like that ever happen, but the longer you survive a nuclear fallout scenario, this will become more and more valuable than these. Those areas that I highlighted may have evacuation routes blocked by other nuclear fallout, leaving the only acceptable route of evacuation being crossing over the border into another country during that crisis. Listen, firearms are great, and I'm a huge advocate of personal protection. But in that scenario, what are you gonna do? Start shooting the radioactive fallout away? Pairing both the usefulness of a passport as a widely recognized form of documentation and what we've seen in recent history regarding people having to flee in the time of war and crisis, why would you not invest in passports for yourself and for your loved ones? This just may be the most overlooked yet highly useful document in both daily life and in emergency scenarios. And if you're one of those people who still says, I would never leave my country, but you buy these and not one of these, I would say you need to reconsider your emergency preparedness priorities. So as with all preps, whether it be firearms and fire starting, water purification or land navigation, bug out bags or backup battery supplies, it's better to have a passport and never need one than need one and not have it. Given my past interactions on this topic, I know that you guys are gonna have a lot to say down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to this channel for more videos just like this. Until next time, God bless you all. Peace.